My name is Justin Ellis. I turned 17 that day in our quiet suburban Atlanta home, the kind with a big southern backyard where neighbors grill on weekends. But instead of cake or a hug, my adoptive mom, Lori, handed me a duffel bag stuffed with my clothes and a single bill. "We've cashed in enough from the state," she said, her voice flat as she flipped through her ledger. $1,200 a month for 17 years. That ends today. I froze in the kitchen, the same spot where we'd had silent dinners for years. "You're serious? This is my birthday." My dad, Randall, just stared at the floor, his work boots scuffed from hauling cargo at the airport warehouse. He muttered something about the mortgage, but didn't look up. Lori didn't blink. "You're an adult now. Pack up and go. We've got a renter lined up for your room," I begged, offered to pay rent from my part-time gig flipping burgers. But she shut the door behind me at noon, the lock clicking like a final calculation. I walked out with $40 and a backpack. No plan, no family. Streets of Atlanta blurred by hot Georgia sun beating down, stomach growling. Days blurring into hunger on a park bench near the airport. Too weak to move. Then he appeared, a sharp-suited guy with a briefcase. "Justin Ellis. I'm your father's lawyer. Kenneth Powell left everything to you. 91 million. A software empire. Mansions. It hit like a freight truck. But the real twist, my parents knew he was looking. They blocked him." Before I get to my story, I want to know what time and what city you are listening in. I'm happy to know how far my story goes. The lock's click echoed in my ears as I stood on the porch. But the real shock came from Lori's words still ringing inside. She sat at the kitchen table with her ledger open, pencil scratching across the pages like she was closing a business deal. $1,200 a month from the state, she said without looking up. Times 17 years. That's $244,800 we've collected. But the subsidies stop at 17 in Georgia. "Justin, you're no longer profitable." I stared at her, my heart pounding. Lori Mitchell, my adoptive mother, worked as an office administrator downtown, always organizing files with the same precision she applied to our lives. Her brown hair was pulled back tight, and her glasses perched on her nose as she tallied the numbers. Next to her, Randall Mitchell shifted in his chair, his hands folded on the table. He was 55, a logistics supervisor at the Atlanta airport warehouse, dealing with shipments all day, but avoiding any real conversation at home. "You're kicking me out on my birthday." My voice cracked, but I forced it steady. The duffel bag sat by the door, packed with my shirts, jeans, a toothbrush, and the sneakers I'd bought myself from tips at the burger joint. Randall cleared his throat, his eyes fixed on a spot on the floor. "Lori, maybe we give him a day or two to sort things." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a $20 bill, sliding it across the table without meeting my gaze. She snapped the ledger shut. "The electric bill is due." "Randall, we list the room online today. Someone's already interested." Her tone was matter-of-fact, like discussing inventory at work. I dropped to my knees right there on the linoleum, the floor cool under my palms. "Please, I'll work more hours at the diner. I'll cover my share. Just let me stay until I find a place." Tears stung my eyes, but I held them back, hating how desperate I sounded. Lori stood up, smoothing her skirt. "You've had food, a roof, school. We met the requirements. Now it's over." She pointed to the bag. "Your stuff's in there. Leave the key on the counter." Randall pushed back his chair and grabbed his keys. "I'm heading to the warehouse." He paused at the door, mumbling, "Take care, Justin." Before stepping out, the truck engine rumbled in the driveway, leaving me alone with her. As I grabbed the bag, memories flooded in. Growing up in this Atlanta suburb felt normal at first, the big backyard where kids played tag. But our house was always quiet. Lori introduced me at her office parties as Justin, our adopted son, emphasizing the word like clarifying a loan. Randall taught me to fix bikes and change tires, skills from his job, but never took me to a game or shared a laugh. Dinners were routine. Southern fried chicken stretched into leftovers, eaten in silence with the TV droning local news about airport expansions. Lori measured portions exactly, calculating costs per plate. Randall grunted at headlines, but never asked about my day. I'd sneak out to the backyard, staring at the Georgia stars, wondering why hugs were rare. School was my break-average grades, fixing classmates' bikes for cash. But home felt like a hotel. Beige walls, and no photos of us together. When I started at the diner at 16, Lori charged me for extras $40 for utilities, $20 for maintenance. Builds responsibility, she'd say. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Sean Weber, my best friend from school. Hey, man, happy birthday. What's up? I swallowed hard, glancing at Lori, who was already on her phone, probably posting the room ad. They're kicking me out. Sean, right now. What, that's messed up. Come crash at my place if you need. I hung up, slinging the bag over my shoulder. Lori walked to the door, holding it open. Noon sharp, don't forget the spare key under the planter, as I stepped into the humid Georgia air. The neighborhood kids laughed in the distance, a stark contrast to the emptiness inside. Sean texted, I'm coming to pick you up, wait there. But I started walking, the bag light on my back, carrying 17 years of nothing but calculations. The humid air clung as I wandered deeper into the city, but the growl in my stomach drowned out everything else. For those first few days, Atlanta's streets became my world. Sidewalks cracked underfoot near the airport runways, planes roaring overhead like distant thunder. I scavenged dumpsters behind fast food spots for half-eaten fries, washed up in gas station bathrooms with scratchy paper towels. Sleep came in fits on benches in Hartsfield-Jackson's shadow, where travelers rushed by without a glance. My phone died after Sean's last text, leaving me isolated in the crowds. Deeper memories surfaced then, ones I'd buried under daily routines. The Mitchell house had always been a shell, Lori locking away adoption papers in her desk drawer, snapping it shut if I entered the room. She'd talk on the phone in hushed tones about deposits, numbers that now made sense as subsidy checks. Randall would tinker in the garage with airport gear, showing me how to organize crates, but never explaining why our conversations stopped at basics. No warmth in those years. Holidays meant generic cards signed Lori and Randall Mitchell. Practical gifts like school notebooks. I'd ask once about my birth parents when I was 12. And the room chilled. They couldn't handle you? Lori clipped. We did the state a favor, Randall added. Better leave it be. His only input before retreating to the TV. The backyard barbecues smelled of neighbor's joy. But our meals were portioned efficiency, collard greens boiled cheap. No seconds allowed. Kenneth Powell had been searching all along. I learned later. But Lori and Randall stonewalled him. Lawyers' letters ignored. Visits turned away with threats of cops. Anything to protect that monthly $1,200. It burned now, realizing their silence bought our beige existence. On day 4, I staggered into the diner where I worked, the fluorescent lights buzzing like accusations. Frank Dawson spotted me from behind the counter, his apron stained with grease. Frank Dawson, my boss at 72, ran the place with Navy discipline from his old days, tattoos peeking under rolled sleeves. "Kid, you look like hell," he said, sliding a plate of eggs and grits my way. "Eat. No charge." I shoveled it in, the warmth hitting hard. "They threw me out. Frank." No warning. He leaned on the counter, wiping a mug. Families can be rough, but you've got steady hands flipping burgers like a pro. Rare these days. Crash in the back room tonight if you need. His words stuck, a rare kindness in the chaos. But as I finished, a man in a gray suit entered, scanning the room. He approached my booth, pulling out a card. Carlos Rivera, the lawyer from Kenneth's firm, sat down uninvited. Justin Ellis, I've been tracking you since your job application pinged your social security number. My fork froze midair. Who are you? Your biological father's representative. Kenneth Powell hired me years ago to break through sealed records. He leaned in, voice low. He passed 2 days before your birthday, heart failure at his desk, but he left instructions and everything to you. The diner spun. Kenneth Powell, founder of a software giant that powered half the apps in Atlanta's tech scene, had built it all while hunting for me. Why now? I whispered. Carlos opened his briefcase, pulling a folder. He regretted signing you over at 22, after your mother, Cheryl Simmons, died in labor. His family pushed adoption for stability. He tried reversing it within days. But you were placed, spent millions on investigators, lobbying Georgia laws, found the Mitchells 3 years back, offered them cash for contact. They refused. Cited your well-being. Anger surged, fresh and sharp. Lori and Randall had known blocked a father desperate to connect, all for subsidies. He was coming for me. Plane ticket in hand, Carlos confirmed. The will names you heir $91 million in assets. The company, properties. We need to verify at the office. I stood, legs shaky but resolved. Frank nodded from afar, mouthing, "Go," as Carlos led me out. The airport hum faded, replaced by a path I never saw coming. The drive to the office blurred Atlanta's skyline, but Carlos's words kept pulling me back. We arrived at a sleek building downtown, glass reflecting the midday sun. Rita Patel waited in a conference room overlooking the city sprawl. Rita Patel, the estate lawyer at 48, handled Kenneth's affairs with quiet efficiency, her dark hair in a neat bun and files stacked neatly on the table. "Mr. Ellis," she said, gesturing to a seat. "Let's get you oriented." Carlos handed me a sealed envelope, Kenneth's handwriting shaky on the front. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. The letter spilled out, 3 pages dense with ink. "Son, if this reaches you," I didn't make it in time. "Your mother, Cheryl, was my world. She passed, bringing you into it. I was 22, overwhelmed, convinced by family that a single dad couldn't provide. Signed the papers in grief, regretted it by dawn." I paused, the room tilting. Rita slid a glass of water across, her expression neutral. The letter pressed on, "Tried everything to reclaim you courts. Detectives, even pushing bills in the Georgia legislature. Found the Mitchells 4 years ago. Sent offers. Letters. They lawyered up, claimed disruption. Blocked me to safeguard their subsidies. But I never stopped. Built the software firm thinking one breakthrough might reach you." Tears blurred the page. Kenneth described naming a key algorithm after me, the one that revolutionized app security for Atlanta banks. Every code line was a message. "Sorry I faltered young. Sorry I couldn't bridge the gap. This inheritance isn't payout, it's amends." Carlos led us next to a secure storage unit on the edge of town, a nondescript warehouse with biometric locks. Inside, shelves groaned under boxes labeled by year. 17 wrapped gifts lined one wall, a remote control plane for 8. Inscribed, "For your first flight." A laptop for 15. Loaded with coding tutorials. A set of house keys for 17, tied to a note. "Your first home, not a handout." I unwrapped the one for 12, a baseball mitt, leather soft. "I'd have pitched with you," the card read, Rage mixed with ache. Lori and Randall had never thrown a ball, too busy tallying expenses. The desk held stacks of unsent letters, yellowed envelopes addressed to Justin. I pulled one from 10 years ago, turning 10 today. Hope school's treating you right. I debugged a server crash last night, reminded me of puzzles you'd solve. Proud of you. From afar. Another. Recent board meeting dragged. Pulled your yearbook photo bought online. You look focused, like Cheryl when she coded her first program. Sean met us there, having driven from school after my frantic call. Dude, I got your text. This is insane. He gripped my shoulder as I sifted through a folder marked Mitchell Correspondence. Emails from Lori's firm. Any interference harms Justin's stability. Subsidies irrelevant. Court filings for restraining orders. Dated back years. They'd hired counsel to scare Kenneth off, preserving their $1,200 monthly. A USB drive labeled Last Words sat atop. Rita plugged it into a laptop. Kenneth's face filled the screen, tired lines around his eyes, recorded in his home office overlooking Peachtree Street. Justin, tomorrow's your day. Rita confirmed 18 frees you from them. I've rehearsed this 100 times. Sorry for the cowardice. Let's start fresh. Booked a spot at that southern bistro you might like, peach cobbler for dessert. Never saw you celebrate. Got 17 wishes banked. All the same, get my boy back. The video cut at his smile, time-stamped 2 nights prior. He clutched a folder with my photo when paramedics arrived. $91 million materialized in the will. The software company valued at the core. Plus 3 Atlanta area estates, a Gulf Coast condo, and liquid funds, houses with pools in Buckhead, one near the airport for convenience, shares in tech startups. Rita outlined, you control it all. Board awaits your input. Sean whistled low, you're set, man. But fury boiled Lori, and Randall's greed stole this. No forgiveness. I'd build on Kenneth's legacy, their calculations crumbling in the dust. Weeks turned into a whirlwind of signatures. But the board's first meeting grounded me in the reality. The conference table in the Buckhead headquarters gleamed under LED lights, executives in button-downs flipping through reports. Harold Jenkins, the CFO at 60, adjusted his tie and slid a tablet my way. Justin, the quarterly projections show growth in app integrations. Kenneth always prioritized security protocols your call on expansions. Around him, Elena Vasquez, the operations lead at 42. Nodded, her notes crisp. They shared anecdotes, Kenneth pacing rooms during late-night codings, muttering about a son out there who needs this stable. I absorbed it. 18 now, and at the helm of a firm employing 500 across Georgia. Push the expansions, I decided, voice firmer than I felt. But allocate 10% to community outreach. They exchanged glances but agreed, drawing from Kenneth's ethos of quiet impact. Back home, Kenneth's Buckhead estate. A sprawling colonial with manicured lawns, I paced the empty halls. Marble floors echoed. Too vast for one person. Sean stopped by that evening, box of takeout in hand. This place screams money. You good. We sat on the terrace, city lights twinkling below. Turning it into housing for foster kids, I told him. Like the ones aging out, no safety net. He raised his soda. Smart. I'll help coordinate volunteers. By month's end, contractors swarmed, dorm rooms added, kitchens upgraded for communal meals. The first group moved in 10 teens from Atlanta shelters, eyes wide at the space. A girl named Tia, 16. Unpacked a duffel similar to mine once. This beats cots, she said. I nodded, seeing echoes but focusing forward. The board's trust grew. Elena mentored me through vendor deals, Harold on finances. Revenue climbed 15% that quarter. apps safeguarding data for local banks, but the pull to confront lingered, sharpening with each check I signed. One humid afternoon, I drove to the east side, where the Mitchells had relocated. Their new spot was a rundown complex off I-85, chain-link fences sagging, cars on blocks nearby. Lori answered the buzzer, her face gaunt under fluorescent hall lights. "Justin." "No welcome, just surprise." Inside. The apartment smelled of stale takeout, furniture mismatched from thrift stores. Randall sat on a sagging couch, remote in hand, his frame thinner than before. Warehouse layoffs hit logistics hard in Atlanta's slowdown. Randall bounced between temp gigs. Lori demoted at the office to data entry for half pay. Bills piled on the coffee table, eviction notices peeking out. "We heard," Lori said, sinking into a chair. "The news. Software error. If you could spot us something." Her hands twisted a napkin, eyes darting to Randall. He leaned forward. "Raised you 17 years. Son. Food on the table. Clothes. That's worth something." I stood by the window, overlooking cracked pavement. $1,200 monthly. 17 years. $244,800. You've been paid in full. The words landed flat. No heat, just fact. Lori's jaw tightened. "We gave stability. The state approved us." "Stability," I countered. "Locked files. Ignored letters from a man who wanted me. You chose checks over chance." Randall looked away, fiddling with the remote. Lori pressed. "Family helps family. Alone." Then, "No?" The finality hung. "You taught transactions. This one's closed." I turned for the door, their silence following. Outside, the Georgia heat pressed, but clarity cut through, no strings left. Sean waited in the car, engine idling. "How'd it go?" "Done," I replied. As we pulled away, the complex shrank in the mirror, their world of tallies intact, but barren. That drive back unlocked a drive of my own, channeling Kenneth's vision into action. The foundation launched quietly, dubbed the Powell Outreach, funneling company profits into reuniting separated families. I screened applicants personally, sitting across from hopeful parents in a modest office off Peachtree. Marcus Hale, a truck driver at 38, clutched a faded photo. "Lost my daughter to foster care after a layoff," he said. "Been scraping for a lawyer." I verified his story, stable job now. Home ready. By week's end, his girl arrived from a group home, hugs fierce in the lobby. 10 such matches followed a software engineer reclaiming her son after divorce, a veteran piecing back with his teen after deployment. Each interview probed intent, why now? What changed not for judgment, but to spot echoes of the Mitchells' calculations. Sean dove in as co-manager, his laptop open during sessions. "This one's solid," he'd note, cross-checking records. "We covered flights, counseling, even startup funds for parents rebuilding." The work expanded. Powell Outreach partnered with Georgia agencies, funding therapy for bonds strained by years apart. One evening, Sean and I oversaw a dinner for a reunited pair, a mom and her 14-year-old. Plates of barbecue untouched as stories poured. "She asked about me every night," the boy said. Sean passed napkins, his usual grin softened. "Worth every late night." Kenneth's Gulf Coast condo sold first, fetching $7 million to seed emergency grants for at-risk youth. The Buckhead estate went next, auctioned to a non-profit for transitional units, ironic, given its empty halls. Proceeds poured into a $20 million endowment, ensuring the foundation's reach without dipping into core operations. Harold from the board handled the paperwork, quipping, "Your father's ghost approves." Elena streamlined donor outreach, landing tech sponsors who matched funds, 19 now. I reviewed progress reports on the terrace where Sean and I once ate takeout, Applications surged, letters from parents who'd scoured databases, kids tracing routes through apps Kenneth's firm secured. We'd placed 15 more families, each a quiet victory against systems that prioritized paperwork over people. Nights brought dreams of Kenneth him at that bistro table. Fork paused mid-bite, explaining code like bedtime tales. "Missed teaching you loops," he'd say. Then fade. Waking. I'd check emails from placements, a thank you from Marcus's daughter. Crayon scrawl, "Home feels real now." It eased the void, his love echoing through strangers' lives. Sean knocked one morning, coffee in hand. Numbers look good, 20 reunions by quarter's end. We mapped expansions, satellite offices in Savannah, grants for legal aid. His role had evolved from friend to partner, spotting red flags in interviews I might miss. Team effort, he shrugged. The foundation's site went live. Anonymous donors stepping up after a local news spot on our first matches, as months stacked. The scale grew, partnerships with national networks, training for caseworkers on ethical searches. A board of advisors formed, including Frank from the diner, his practical eye on logistics. Keep it grounded, he'd advise. Revenue from the firm hit new highs. Apps now shielding data for nonprofits to full circle. The sales closed the chapter on Kenneth's properties, bricks turning to bridges for others. No shrines left, just momentum. Sean and I toasted at a quiet spot, glasses clinking. "To what lasts," he said. The city hummed below, families mending in ways mine never did. True bonds form through effort, not ledgers, resilience turning loss into lines connecting the overlooked. Quiet evenings on the new terrace brought the city's pulse close. Yet solitude sharpened the edges of memory. Dreams visited often Kenneth across a linen-clothed table. Steam rising from peach cobbler, his laugh cutting through clatter as he sketched app flows on a napkin. "Loops for infinity," he'd explain, eyes mirroring mine. We'd talk code till dawn, no gaps. Waking to the estate's silence now mine. Unadorned, I'd linger in bed, the ache familiar, but fading into purpose. No more ghosts, just blueprints for the next grant cycle. A letter arrived mid-year from one placement, a 17-year-old named Lena Ortiz, her script steady. "Your foundation gave us weekends at the lake, first time Mom taught me to skip stones. She's teaching knots now. For sailing. Thanks for the chance." I folded it carefully, pinning it beside progress charts. The work filled voids. 25 reunions tallied, each file a thread rewoven. Board sessions evolved into strategy hubs. Harold proposed scaling to Florida borders. Elena mapping digital tools for virtual visits during waits. "Streamlines without strings," she said. I greenlit it, watching the firm innovate new encryption for family sharing apps. Free for nonprofits, Frank contributed from afar, shipping diner care packages to new intakes. "Fuel for fresh starts," his note read. The Mitchells surfaced in snippets. Unbidden, a mutual acquaintance mentioned Lori's diagnosis, arthritis flaring without insurance. Wait lists long in Georgia's clinics. Randall drove rideshares nights, back strained from warehouse days. Their apartment traded for a cheaper unit in Decatur. Utilities rationed. No calls came. Regret hung unspoken. Their ledgers balanced only in paper. Social services stretched thin for folks their age, Medicaid gaps. No safety nets for midlife slips. They navigated alone. Echoes of choices compounding. I signed the petition at 19's close. Court clerk stamping the change, Justin Powell. No fanfare, just finality, old ID tucked away. New one crisp in my wallet. Sean raised a brow over lunch. Fits. Contact severed clean. No updates. No bridges. Their path diverged. Mine aligned with Kenneth's unfinished code. Balm came in small measures. A volunteer fair where Foster alumni shared stories, laughter mingling with barbecue scents. One kid, 12, gripped my sleeve. "Heard you started this. My sister's coming home next month." I nodded. The weightlifting fraction by fraction. Powell Outreach hit 30 matches, endowment swelling from sponsor infusions. Reflection settled like evening fog over the Chattahoochee. Kenneth's drive endless queries. Legal battles mirrored in my daily scans of applicant logs. He'd coded against odds. I funded against forgetfulness. No erasure of scars. But scars scarred over. Resilient. The terrace view stretched to horizons. City veins pulsing with lives reconnected. Dreams shifted. Not loss, but launch cobbler shared. Napkin sketches passed on. Peace rooted there. In the code of continuity. Love carves paths through persistence. Not payouts enduring where transactions fail.